Hey, it's Thay, and today I wanted to talk about how I ended up in a fursuit. Now, I have no idea where I first got the idea of anthropomorphic characters as a child. There wasn't a whole lot of influences going on at the time at all, especially in the 90s. I'm totally kidding. I watched way too much Gargoyles. Holy crap, I was obsessed with that show. I also played way too many video games, specifically Spyro the Dragon. There seems to be an ongoing dragon theme here. Because yes, Thay originally was a dragon character. And he kind of came about due to not the best parenting situation when I was growing up. So as a result of that, I began to build an imaginary world and just kept building and building and building inside my head. And that's where I honestly spent most of my time, is just imagining things because they were more pleasant than reality at the time. Now, I eventually moved away back to my other parents and kind of try to live a normal life. I was still a pretty weird kid, and it was pretty damn obvious. I ended up quitting track team to start a parkour club, which was awesome, by the way. I started to pick up a writing skill after my teacher said that I was doing great, and little did he know that I was trying to write little stories about anthropomorphic characters at the time, which I still did not know at this point what a furry was, or what the furry fandom was, or even that they existed. So I didn't actually end up making any attempt to find a community for these things. I thought it was just a very personal and weird hobby, that I was the only one, that I was alone, and only I had these feelings, as if I was the only person on the planet. Also because my parents were pretty conservative, and they like to make fun of things, especially weird things, like me. So fast forward a couple years, and I'm applying to college, and I ended up getting denied, which blew my mind, because I'd worked so hard to get all these really good grades and do really well in school, and even start college early to transfer to a four-year university, and all of a sudden I can't get in, which made no sense to me. But that made me question, is this what I want to do with my life, or is this just something I'm doing to please my parents? So at that point, I made a decision for myself, since I didn't know what I wanted to do at this point in my life. I was only 18. How am I supposed to know what I'm supposed to do with the rest of 80 years, potentially, of my entire life? So instead of spending tens of thousands of dollars to be in student debt with a degree that I may or may not have wanted, and a career that may or may not have made me happy, coming from a military family, I decided to join the military to find myself, to get some life experience and figure out what exactly I want to do with my life. So there I was, about 2 years later, in the middle of Japan, trying to do exactly that. Exploring a country that is just ridiculously beautiful, a culture that is extremely interesting, and just exploring all kinds of new experiences and ideas that I never thought about before, and revisiting some old ideas. That imaginary world I created in childhood, I now try to project it into an art form. I tried to write more about it, and it turns out apparently I had a lot to write about. It was just pages and pages and pages and pages, and it spilled over into artwork with maps, global maps, really, really big maps with lots of details in them, with characters out the wazoo, with fake companies, with countries, with factions, with technology, all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like I try to take every theme from every movie and video game and cartoon I ever watched and roll it all into one, which I guess sounds good on paper, but it really becomes a mess. It had hundreds of different versions, and I could never decide what details went where. And really, the only consistent factor was this guy, the character that represented me in every story. It was some form of dragon person or anthropomorphic character, and that's when I started to focus on just the character, trying to flesh it out, trying to draw it, trying to figure out what exactly do I want to portray as myself, which led me to DeviantArt, which if anyone has ever searched furry art on DeviantArt, they will inevitably come across links that go to Fur Affinity, which at the time I thought was a very interesting site. It had lots of anthropomorphic character artwork, even way more than I can imagine. And then I turned off the safe for work filter. And that's when I realized the furry fandom was not for me. Or at least I would keep my distance, right? So I stuck to DeviantArt, just posted some stuff there. And eventually I came back to the States when a friend from high school actually messaged me and was saying, hey, I noticed you like drawing people animals, in a real awkward quotation mark sense. AKA, hey, I'm a low-key furry in the closet, and I think you are too. Let's go to a convention together and check it out. So, AnthroCon happened to be right around the corner, and we were a little iffy about it. So, I know this sounds crazy now, but 2 weeks before AnthroCon started, we decided to get a hotel room. We only planned to stay 2 days just to check it out. And we ended up having an amazing time. We met all kinds of crazy talented people. Everyone was so nice, so welcoming, just fantastic to just watch. Even the public reception was amazing because this is the first year, this is AnthroCon in 2015, that it was the first year they had the outdoor parade. When Pittsburgh literally just stops what they're doing and people don't even know what furries are, decide to walk outside and go look at the parade. And the response from the crowd was just awesome. And that's when I talked to my first fursuiter. What is this fursuit thing that you are wearing and why? And it was just a pretty casual response. I just do this for fun. I enjoy it. And that's when I realized that, maybe it's not that weird. And then down the furry rabbit hole we went. So naturally I went to another convention called Midwest Furfest, and that's when I met Sabo. And Sabo, at some point, was like, hey, you know what? Would you like to try on my fursuit? So I suited up, took a couple photos for him, and I just had a blast being a big, dumb, brown dog, no offense, with avocado themes tastefully added. And after that experience, that's kind of when I was hooked. I was like, you know what? This is too much fun. I'll at least try it. Let me just make my own, just a casual fursuit, right? No one ever does that. So of course, the logical way of going about things was to be on a temporary duty for five or 6 months or so. And I was just staying in a hotel like, you know what? I'm bored with nothing to do. Why don't I try making a fursuit in this hotel? So of course I went down to Joann Fabrics and bought all the materials that I thought I needed and got about as far as making a foam head, a bucket head. That looked ridiculous. And that's when I realized that maybe fursuits were more complicated than I thought. Although I did make some really nice feet paws. I like those a lot. After which I came back home and kind of started looking around for makers. I started saving up money on the side and trying to ask around, which took a while. And honestly, it was kind of tedious. And a lot of it came down to availability and timing. And it's a really complicated thing trying to find someone who's going to create that character that you made up as a kid or that you've molded over time to represent yourself as kind of an avatar. So about a year later, I ended up meeting someone from work.
So sorry.
Also had no idea his name was Mark Sparks and that he was kind of a bit popular on YouTube.
You wanna do me a favor coming out?
Oh, do we have a real
no.
one? Oh.
I like it.
But my point is, we met at my apartment with a couple other local furries, and we were discussing makers, and that's when I met Blueberry from Twinkie Arts. So he introduced me to Twinkie Arts and said, you know, they're looking for species that are non-canine, aka me, and they were opening up in about a month. And so I was super excited. They ended up saying yes when I did submit my submission. And so there I was, wrapping myself in duct tape, as every fursuiter does when they start out life. And shortly afterwards, I ended up in the hospital. Nothing to do with duct tape. It was actually because I decided to take photos in a tall grassy field for an event and got bit by a snake. It wasn't venomous, it just had bacteremia on it, and that's what I got in my bloodstream. So unfortunately, I had no idea this was happening at the time, and it was a terrifying experience for about 7 days straight of me being in the hospital trying to figure out why I was dying. And during those 7 days, my girlfriend at the time was working at a coffee shop and had figured out how to find her way to the hospital I was at, about an hour away, find a way through the gate, get in the hospital, find where I was sitting, and sit with me every day just to be there to make sure I was okay. And that's when I learned 2 things. 1, life is too short to be normal. Be you, be weird, express yourself, you've only got 1 life. Don't live it dangerously, but live it in a way that makes you happy, that makes you satisfied, that you can look back and say, you know what? I did something that I wanted to do. And the other thing I learned is who I wanted to marry one day. I also made the final decision for my commission to pay for it while I was still in the hospital bed. And I was pretty messed up afterwards. I lost the ability to control my own body temperature for a while, and it was not fun. But I ended up being fine, and about a month or two later...
Can you see?
Shake your head back and forth. Here's the wiggle. Oh my god.
And I thought it was absolutely perfect. It was better than I expected. It was just... There were no words to describe the feeling that when you have your own character made for you pop out of a box, and you can just wear it. It's just giving me an excuse to run around like a giant, adorable idiot and entertain people. That's literally the point of this existing. So I went back to Anthrocon 3 years later and actually participated in the parade that originally inspired me to get a fursuit. So I thought that was a pretty awesome experience. And I got to experience it with my girlfriend, who is now my wife. Because she puts up with all of my furry shenanigans, and I love her to the point to where I can be annoying sometimes. And that's pretty much how I ended up in a fursuit and why I do it. If you guys have any similar experiences or something you would like to share in the comments below, please do so. And thanks for watching.
Thank you.